Nice. Drug problems and the legal trends is quite a burning topic, not today, but I can say for a few decades now. We've also seen a lot of movies coming across on the issues of drugs, and it is also discussed about, and it's also sometimes a political agenda during the elections also. The drug problems and what are the developing legal trends is a session for today. And I can say that maybe after 2020, we have again brought a speaker from Jammu, and he's Rameshwar Singh, who is well versed in these different perspectives of law. And we are thankful that he has accepted our invite, and that too on a Sunday evening. Those who have joined with us, we are thankful to them, and especially to Mr. Jamwal. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar, everybody, and my special thanks to Mr. Vikas and all those who have joined. Am I clear, sir? Is it audible? Yeah. Well, it's a problem which confronts us all as individuals, as citizens of the country, as a part of the society, and as part of the judicial system, both from the civil and from the criminal side. And I'm saying this thing on the basis of the research work carried out by me for over a period of almost 35 years. I'm working on these lines as to why people do whatever they do, why people become criminals, why people take to drugs, why they become carriers of drugs, and why they consume drugs. And on the basis of that, I'm saying that this problem is going to create a lot of problem for the judicial system in the coming years, both from the civil side as well as from the criminal side. You see that the way the science of genetics and epigenetics is developing, and people are going for genetic remodeling of their future children so that healthy children get born and they don't carry the same genetic problems, the physical problems which their parents are having at the moment or which their grandparents had in the past. In the same fashion, we can conceive of a situation that people would be going for the behavior modifications, the problematic behaviors which can confront them or their future children in the near future. But for that matter, we will have to learn a lot about as to what is behavior, how behavior is learned, whether nature is responsible for our behavior or nurturing is responsible for our behavior. That debate is going on for the last so many years. But anyway, the problem which would arise is that this problem is arising in the Western world now. That people are saying that if a crime has been committed, I was not responsible for it because genetic transmission was not within my control. If I inherited certain genes which took me towards the path of criminality, then how can I be held liable for this thing? In the same fashion, if a civil liability arises, or maybe that the person can go in for claiming civil damages from the institutions which were responsible for nurturing him right from the childhood, the society, the schools, the colleges, etc. He can say that when the curative steps were required to be taken, the institutions failed to take those curative steps. I'm talking of the problems of ADHD, attention hyperactivity disorder, ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, conduct disorder. These are the problems which confront a young kid, and these can be identified at the very childhood, in the school level, in the college level. These can be identified, and these are the precursors of serious offending. So, if those problems were not tackled by the institutions which were responsible for those that child at the childhood stage, then the person can certainly claim damages from the institutions. These are the problems which are going to arise for the institutions. And the judiciary would be confronted as to how to tackle these problems which are going to arise in the near future. For that matter, a lot of steps are required to be explained as to how biologically we are being affected by the genes, how the genes react to a particular situation, how the environment creates situations wherein the genes are uh, remodeled, they can be made to work in a particular fashion, and the brain cells from where our behavior emerges, that can be tackled in a better way. These are the things which, but for that matter, we will have to see as to how much is the problem. You see that I tried to study the problems in two northern states, J&K and Punjab. Economic loss to the states is around 3% of its GDP. In J&K, the GDP of J&K is around 2,10,000 crores. So that means that J&K was losing about 6,400 crores every year because of the drugs problem only. Punjab's economy GDP is more than 8 lakh crores. So Punjab is losing more than 7,700 crores every year because of the drug problem. And national level, if we take the GDP of India to be around more than 3 billion, we can imagine as to how much is the problem. And I'm not saying that we can eradicate the problem totally, but if we can reduce the content, if we can reduce the usage of the drugs, even by 1%, that would be a huge saving for the country, for the states, and for the systems. The judiciary itself is getting just 0.1% of the total GDP. That amount can be diverted for creating more infrastructure, for creating more facilities for the lawyers, for the judges, for other litigants also. But that nobody is giving a thought to all these factors. Because these studies are carried out only in the Western world. US is losing more than $7 billion per year because of the crime problem and because of the drug problem. Their studies are carried out and then the people take corrective steps, but not in India. So my request to everybody would be that we get together and launch a movement so that the government is made to work on these lines. Now, what are those lines as to how to tackle these problems? I started working on these lines in a district jail in Jammu. I applied that concept developed by me. I call it mass behavioral and genetic engineering program. By using that concept, it's a combination of various concepts from genetics, epigenetics, behaviorism, neurobiology, yoga, Sankhya philosophies. And for about 45 days, I carried out those programs in the district jail. And the result was so overwhelming. More than 95% of the persons said that their behavior has changed. We checked it on a scale of psychological scale, and more than 90% of the respondents were saying that they had a positive change in their attitude and in their behavior. So those programs can be launched in various programs in different jails all across the country. But our country lacks any program so far as the behavior changing programs are concerned. We have programs for economic upliftment of the uh, inmates, for the prisoners. They are taught to bookbinding, etc. But has anybody seen that a criminal after coming out of the jail is indulging in those programs? Is trying to establish a shop of bookbinding or candle making? Nobody does it. And economic upliftment or economic recourse is something different than a recourse to change the behavior. For behavior change, our jails, our district prisons don't have any programs, no funding for that. So for that matter, we will have to launch a program. Now you see that what happens as to what are those biological changes, why people take to drugs. There are certain drugs in India, as per a World Bank UN report. there were more than 5 million users of this heroin. Now, heroin, once it is taken, it goes to the brain and produces certain chemicals which resemble the neurotransmitters. Now, neurotransmitters are the biochemicals which are produced by the cells. Those cells, after receiving signals through our 5 sense organs, then they convey that message to a particular part of the brain. Then the brain, on the basis of the programs already fed into the brain, our memory part plays a important role in that. Now, the memory part, from there, you get a response as to how to react to a particular situation. And on the basis of that memory, we react to a particular situation, whether we want to run away from that situation, we want to confront that situation, or we want to assimilate in that situation. Now, neurotransmitters are found by the brain cells. Those neurotransmitters are then conveyed to the other brain cells and then to our those parts of the body which show our reaction to a particular situation, the motor parts of the body. Now, once heroin is taken, heroin produces certain chemicals which resemble those neurotransmitters, but they are not neurotransmitters. Once those artificial biochemicals are produced, then the signals which are to be sent to the motor organs, they are not properly sent. Once the proper signaling is not given to the motor cell, then the motor cell will deviate from the assigned action. For example, if somebody wants to walk away from a particular situation, his feet may not agree with that situation because the neurotransmitter has not committed the proper signal to the motor part. So these are the problems. Then, because of the certain genes which are responsible for our behavior, DRD2 gene, DRD4 gene, that one gene, they produce certain biochemicals like dopamine, serotonin. These these chemicals are responsible for the for the proper functioning of those cells of those parts of the brain which are responsible for controlling our behavior. For example, amygdala, then the frontal cortex, from where our most of our behavior generates, they don't act properly. Now, those organs of the brain which are responsible for our action, if they don't act properly, if they don't think properly, if they don't react to a situation particularly in a particular fashion, then that can be a damaging situation. It is because of the non-functioning of the brain parts that the proper action is not taken by the individual. Then the second problem arises that a person who is yet to be born, for example, if the father is taking the drug, then that drug part will combine with his sperm, and when that damaged sperm or altered sperm hits the female egg, then a child would be born with certain deficiencies in its brain. The brain would not have developed properly, and those, especially those parts of the brain which are responsible for controlling our behavior, they don't develop properly. And I am saying this thing on the basis of the studies which have been already carried out. Now, for example, somebody is smoking, and in that smoke, some drug is also mixed. Now, that smoke penetrates that part of the female where the child is getting reared. That is called the placenta. So, if placenta goes inside that drug goes inside the placenta, then the child would be inheriting those defective parts, defective parts of the brain, which is developing in the womb itself. And it has been established by experimentation, by studies, that those children whose parents take to drugs, they are born with defective brains. And if they are born with defective brains, they are amenable to violence. They can go for violence in the later stages of life. They can go for the drugs because then they have a propensity. They have a liking for that particular kind of drug which the father was taking or the mother was taking when the child was being conceived or it was being fed in the womb itself. Now, because of that problem, and the science of epigenetics says that this problem does not remain with that child only. It will be transmitted to the further generations. His child, then his grandchild also. It goes on for years together, for centuries together. And if this continues for centuries together, and we can imagine that if millions of people are drug affected at this point of time in India, then we can imagine the situation as to what will be the position of our future generation. A study was carried out in Punjab in the year 2015. In 2015, the national average was 250 persons affected per lakh affected all across the country. But in Punjab, it was 836 people. This must have increased by manifold after 10 years now. So we can imagine that what would be the situation for the rest of the country when this thing is happening. And what kind of situation would be when all those persons, all those young kids are born with uh, certain brain abnormalities, and those abnormalities will result in either uh, craving for violence or going for drugs. It is only because of these factors. Otherwise, I have seen that Kashmir was never a violent place. Why violence has erupted so many times in Kashmir in the last 2 decades? Why the nature of the people has changed? That part has never been studied because nobody has studied the brains of those persons who have been killed. Whether they had certain brain abnormalities and what were those brain abnormalities and why those happened. You see that there is a lot of problem of smoking in Kashmir. Can that be responsible? Then there is another problem which is erupting because of our intake of food. Certain micronutrients like zinc, like cadmium, like small other things. Those things are also affecting our formation of our brain in the childhood. Brain deformities are there, occurring there. And if the brain deformities occur in the childhood, they can lead to person towards the path of criminality and towards the path of drug addiction. So these are the problems which need to be tackled. But how to tackle it? For that matter, I suggested to the government of India, to the PMO, that we launch a project called Project Safe India, by virtue of which we can create a culture of lawfulness. Now, a culture of lawfulness is something different from the uh, uh, the process of what we call as uh, uh, the existing situation which we have at the moment. In the culture of lawfulness, the the groups which are affected because of violence or because of this drug, they are touched and they are made to be part of the solution. Once they realize that we are part of the solution, we have to evolve the strategies, we have to tackle the situation on our own. Once they become the part of the strategy, once they become the part of that group which has to tackle that, then they feel it as a responsibility towards the society, towards the country, towards the state. And it has been experimented quite successfully in Sicily, where there was a lot of problem because of the crime problem, and some other parts of the world wherever this problem of extra crime occurred in Italy, certain parts of Italy. Those problems were tackled quite successfully. The same type of strategy can be adopted. We can choose the groups which have to be tackled initially. Then we have to tackle them by using this technique, which is a combination of different techniques, by using yoga and by using No, yoga, most of the people treat it as for reforming their body parts or for further enhancement in their health, etc. But yoga can be tackled, yoga can be used to tackle the path, this criminality as well, which I tried to do and which I succeeded in doing it. Sankhya philosophy says that our vritti, which consists of three types, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic vritti, that can also be tackled. That can be tackled by using a different yogic techniques. Now, what are those techniques? Well, once an individual born, it is expected that he is born with a clean slate. There should not be any problem so far as the physical problems are concerned, so far as the mental problems are concerned. But it is not so. He is born with certain inclinations. Those inclinations come from the genes which he is inheriting from the parents. You take the example of dogs. Now, Alsatian dogs or other dogs, they were transported from the Western world centuries ago, but they are continuing with the same type of behavior which they were displaying at that point of time in the Western world. There is no change in their behavior. But why this has changed in human beings? Because human beings are born with three types of those pravrittis, we call it in Sankhya philosophy. That pravritti can be changed by feeding him the proper type of dosage of that environment. For example, if positive environment is created for him, then the negative thoughts or negative pravritti, which is called tamasic pravritti, the ratio of that tamasic pravritti will go down. Once that ratio goes down, then the rajasic pravritti will overpower that. It is just like the flowering of the colors. If the flowers of the colors have a particular content of a particular color, then that color will become dominant. The other color will become the recessive. In the same fashion, once a pravritti, say sattvic pravritti or the rajasic pravritti, becomes dominant, the other pravritti would become the recessive pravritti. Recessive pravritti would come in the background, and the dominant pravritti would come in the forefront. By changing that pravritti, we can succeed in changing the human nature. And once we succeed in doing that, then we can certainly change the nature of that person. So my uh, my request to the participants would be that we launch a movement for this thing, that we can force the government that we take these corrective steps at this point of time. By launching these, we can not only tackle the problem of terrorism, we can not only tackle the problem of this nationalism, left wing terrorism, and also this drug problem and other problems of violent crimes. Also, we can change that. So for that matter, we will have to go for a massive scale, massive. Uh, I'm sorry, phone is coming. Okay, massive uh, uh, type of a movement will have to be launched. Thousands of people will have to be. No, from where those thousands of people are going to come. For that matter, we can take the help of the Anganwadi workers. We can take the help of ASHA workers. We can take the help of the law volunteers, which NALSA and SALSA are having at the moment. You see, NALSA is involving thousands of law volunteers, law students as their volunteers. Those volunteers can be taught to go to the different villages, to the different societies. People can be made to learn a little bit about the legal terms and legal these laws, etc. Once the people are made aware of the legal provisions, that these are the consequences which are going to occur for their families and for the individuals if they violate a particular law, then that feeling will certainly come to that person. Yes, if I violate this law, then these can be the consequences for me, not only for me, but for my family also. So he will certainly think twice, thrice before taking a particular criminal action. In the same fashion, we can use the massive infrastructure of the yogic various yoga schools and the yogic practices which are being now adopted by the different schools and colleges. Even yoga has been adopted by the United Nations. We can persuade the national government that yoga can be used to tackle the problem of crime as well. But for that matter, we will have to train the yoga experts and the yoga teachers as to what is crime and how crime can be and how that behavior can be remodeled, how that behavior can be changed by using the various yoga techniques which have been developed only for this purpose, for changing the human mind. So, for that matter, a little bit of knowledge of genetics, epigenetics, neurobiology, along with the knowledge of laws and the knowledge of Sankhya and yoga philosophies is required. And those persons can be made to can be made as a part of the uh, solution. And for going for that solution, uh, we can not only tackle this problem at this point of time, but for the future problems also. Because once we succeed in doing that, then the future problems which are going to arise, wherein the people can say, yes, the corrective steps were taken by the government, by the institution, it ultimately failed, then that institution or the state will not be responsible for that. There can be certain other reasons also. But the state would be state would be in a position to say, yes, we took the steps. But for that matter, the schools and the colleges will have to be taken on board. They will have to employ those persons who have knowledge of all these subjects. And for that matter, a particular type of movement is required. So I can go on speaking on this subject as to how neurotransmitter, because you see that each and every brain cell is capable of taking a decision of its own. And there are more than 100 billion brain cells in a human brain. And they are connected with each other by 1000 trillion connections. So how much is the wiring? And it is not that it is a static part of the body which we inherit from our parents. It goes on changing. It is changing every second, every moment. It is changing by the kind of knowledge which is being provided to the brain. If a positive knowledge is coming to the brain, those synaptic connections between different brain cells, they are either being made or being broken. If negativity is coming to the brain, then those connections are getting those parts of the brain which have negative storage. For that matter, that negative storage would be enhanced, and then that person would become a negative type of person. You see that our brain has a huge memory. That part is called the karmasya part in the brain. Now, where that part is situated? In the physical brain, when you cut open the brain, you will not find any part which is called karmasya. You will not find any part which is called mind. What is mind? How mind is formed? From where the mind is coming? What is the material of which this mind is made up of? And where is that karmasya part? Now, that karmasya part, our philosophy says that karmasya is storing millions of files. I got married in the year 1994, but still I remember each and every moment of my marriage. If I want to see my uh, marriage, I can immediately recollect my marriage moments, and that entire scene will start running. The video file will start running. The audio file will start running. The still pictures will start running. Where those files are stored and where that is being displayed and who is seeing that. The modern science does not know anything about all these things. But our philosophy says that karmasya is storing millions of those negative files. And if we can delete those files, we can create space in the brain, in the mind. It is just like a computer part. You delete the obnoxious virus infected files, a lot of space is created, and then you feed the computer with positive files, with new programs, and the capacity of the computer and its working condition will improve. In the same fashion, once the brain is reformatted, the karmasya part is made clear of all those negative files, then a lot of space is created for storing positive files. And those positive files will come from the teachers, from the community leaders, from all those persons who are responsible for uh, betterment of the society. By changing the nature of the karmasya part, by storing positive files, you are changing the vritti of that person. And once the vritti gets changed, then you are creating a positive person. So uh, these are the suggestions and these are the programs which have been implemented at different levels by me. I can share the idea behind this thing. I can share as to how this entire process occurs, how this how those negative files initially get enfeebled, then they come to the forefront, to the conscious part of the brain, and then they are burnt. They are eliminated from the brain. Once those negative files, negative programs get eliminated from the brain, then the constitution of the brain, the constitution of those cells, the capacity of those cells increases, and then you can feed them with positive programs. So I hope that I have been able to say yes, this was the program which needs to be carried, which which requires to be carried out at the national level, at the state level. If we want to change, if we want to tackle the problem of drugs, then we have to take these positive steps. Otherwise the problem is going to exacerbate, to increase in the near future, and we are going to see a future where we can imagine as to what kind of future generations would be. The impaired generations, having impaired brains, having a liking for the drugs at the very childhood stage, and where then our country would go and our society would go. You can well imagine. And for that matter, if anybody wants to ask any question, then certainly ask. I would welcome. And once again, I thank the uh, participants. I thank uh, uh, the organizers, especially Mr. Vikas and his team, that they gave me the opportunity. I know that there was incoherence because the subject is so large, so vast that it could not have been encompassed in a presentation of just 45 minutes or 1 hour. It requires a lot of time to explain the whole functioning of the brain. It requires a lot of time to explain the functioning of the uh, vrittis, as to what vrittis are there, how Sankhya and yoga philosophies can change our vritti. But I tried to do whatever was possible for me to do within these 40 minutes. And if anybody is interested in asking any question, is welcome.
Thank you,
so
Mr.
much.
Jamal, for sharing your insightful session and thought processes. If you could just summarize this within 5-10 minutes in Hindi also, so that people can understand. Though I know that 45 minutes was the compressed part, it will be more compressed in a brief synoptic note. If you can explain it in Hindi also, what can all be done?
हाँ जी, हिंदी में यही कहूँगा कि देखिए, ड्रग की प्रॉब्लम जो है ये ऑल ओवर इंडिया, ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड है वैसे, लेकिन वर्ल्ड में इतनी शायद एक्यूट प्रॉब्लम नहीं है जितनी हमारे कुछ एक स्टेट्स में या हमारे ऑल ओवर इंडिया लेवल पे ये इमर्ज हो रही है। इसका रीजन ये है कि हमने इस प्रॉब्लम को, इसको टैकल करने के लिए हम सिर्फ इसको या तो पुलिस एंगल से देखते हैं, कोई ड्रग एडिक्ट पकड़ा गया या ड्रग बेचने वाला पकड़ा गया, उसके खिलाफ चलान पेश कर दिया, आगे जुडिशरी का काम है उसको पनिश करना या उसको एक्विट करना। लेकिन हम उस पर्सन ने ये ऐसा बिहेवियर एक्वायर क्यों करा, वो ऐसा बिहेवियर उसका बना क्यों, इसके लिए क्या कोई बायोलॉजिकल रीजंस हैं, इसके लिए कोई साइकोलॉजिकल रीजंस हैं, सोशोलॉजिकल रीजंस हैं, इकोनॉमिक रीजंस हैं, क्या है, उसके लिए हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि बायोलॉजी में ये कौन कौन से ऐसे तत्व कह सकते हैं, प्रोडक्ट कह सकते हैं जो हमारी बायोलॉजी को अफेक्ट कर रहे हैं। जैसे निकोटिन, हम सिगरेट स्मोकर्स को ये अक्सर होती है प्रॉब्लम, तो वो निकोटिन काफी इनहेल करते हैं। अब जो निकोटिन जो है वो जब बच्चा माँ के पेट में होता है, निकोटिन को ये एक्सपेरिमेंट किया गया है कि निकोटिन जो है वो मदर का जो प्लेसेंटा है, जिसके बीच में बच्चेदानी के बीच में जब बच्चा वो पल रहा है, निकोटिन उसको पेनिट्रेट कर जाती है। और जो निकोटिन वहां पे पेनिट्रेट जब करती है, उसके अंदर चली जाती है, तो बच्चे का जो दिमाग बन रहा होता है उस समय उसके ब्रेन के वो वाले हिस्से या वो वाले पार्ट्स जो उसके बिहेवियर को कंट्रोल करते हैं, वो प्रॉपर्ली डेवलप नहीं होते। अगर वो प्रॉपर्ली ब्रेन का वो वाला पार्ट डेवलप नहीं होगा, तो वो बच्चा एक डिफॉर्म्ड ब्रेन के साथ पैदा होगा। उस डिफॉर्म्ड ब्रेन में जो पार्ट्स होंगे ब्रेन के जो हमारे बिहेवियर को कंट्रोल करते हैं कि हमारा बिहेवियर वायलेंट ना हो, हम ड्रग्स की तरफ ना जाएं, लेकिन वो ऐसा बच्चा नहीं होगा। उसकी एक लाइकिंग होगी क्योंकि उसने अपनी मदर के, या तो मदर के वो जो एग होता है उसके साथ वो अटैचमेंट हुई है, या फादर के स्पर्म के साथ अटैचमेंट उसको आई हुई है। और जो बच्चा वो पैदा होगा, जेनेटिक्स और एपिजेनेटिक्स के प्रोसेस के जरिए वो आगे भी जनरेशन को पास ऑन करेगा। अगर ये आगे भी जनरेशन को पास ऑन करेगा वो, तो आगे वाली आने वाली जनरेशनें भी जो होंगी उसकी, वो भी ड्रग्स की तरफ जा सकती हैं या वायलेंस की तरफ जा सकती हैं। उस उसके लिए एक तो उसका खान पान हमने चेक करना है कि वो खाता क्या है, पीता क्या है। विस्की पीकर अगर वो करेगा तो विस्की की वो ट्रांसमिशन जो होगी जेनेटिक ट्रांसमिशन होगी। अगर उसके खाने में लेड है, कैडमियम है, जिंक की बहुतायत या कमी है, तो जो उसके ब्रेन में जो न्यूरो ट्रांसमीटर्स की फॉर्मेशन हो रही है, कुछ एक केमिकल्स की फॉर्मेशन हो रही है, डोपामाइन, सेरोटोनिन वगैरह की, तो वो प्रॉपर फॉर्मेशन नहीं होती। न्यूरो दिस ये जो डोपामाइन और सेरोटोनिन है, ये ब्रेन के आगे वाले फ्रंटल पार्ट को लुब्रिकेट करते हैं। अगर लुब्रिकेशन प्रॉपर नहीं होगी फ्रंटल पार्ट की, तो जो ब्रेन का जो फ्रंटल पार्ट है जिसमें हमारे जो एक्शंस होते हैं, जो हम एक्शन करते हैं, वो थिंक भी करता है और एक्शन करने के लिए हमें फोर्स भी करता है, वो प्रॉपरली काम नहीं करता। ऑर्बिटोफ्रंटल जो पार्ट है न्यूरोकॉर्टेक्स का, वो भी प्रॉपरली डेवलप नहीं होगा। अगर ये वाले एमिगडाला भी प्रॉपरली डेवलप नहीं होगा, दूसरे ब्रेन के वो पार्ट्स जो हैं जो प्रॉपरली डेवलप होने चाहिए वो नहीं होंगे। अगर वो बच्चा वैसा डिफॉर्म बच्चा पैदा होगा, तो उसकी जो लाइकिंग होगी ड्रग्स की तरफ भी ज्यादा होगी, वायलेंस की तरफ भी ज्यादा होगी। इसकी वजह से हमें जो करेक्टिव स्टेप्स लेने चाहिए, वो तो एक तो उन माँ बाप को भी एनलाइटन करना पड़ेगा, हमें सोसाइटी को एनलाइटन करना पड़ेगा, स्कूल की मैनेजमेंट को एनलाइटन करना पड़ेगा कि हमें पहले ये चेक करना है कि कंडक्ट डिसऑर्डर के जो सिम्टम्स वो शो कर रहा है बच्चा बचपन में ही वायलेंस की तरफ जा रहा है, क्लास डिसरप्टर बन रहा है, या स्कूल में बन रहा है, या कॉलेज में क्लास को डिस्टर्ब कर रहा है, वायलेंस की तरफ जा रहा है, तो ये इंडिकेटर्स होते हैं कि वो सीरियस ऑफेंडिंग की तरफ जा रहा है। उसको करेक्टिव स्टेप्स वहां पे लिए जा सकते हैं, मिड कोर्स करेक्शन जिसको हम कहते हैं। मिड कोर्स करेक्शन करने के लिए एक तो उसकी खुराक चेंज करनी पड़ेगी, खाने पीने की हैबिट्स चेंज करनी पड़ेगी, फिर उसको योगा, इंडियन फिलोसफीज को बताना पड़ेगा, फिर जो उसकी काउंसलिंग होगी, जो टीचर्स होंगे, वो वो उसको करेक्टिव स्टेप्स ले सकते हैं। उन टीचर्स को हमें ट्रेन करना पड़ेगा। जो आंगनवाड़ी में बच्चे जो हम उनको फीड कर रहे हैं, क्या कहीं उस खुराक में कोई कमी तो नहीं है? क्या बच्चे के माँ को जो खुराक जो उस समय जो जब वो प्रेग्नेंट थी, उसको वो खुराक उसको प्रॉपरली मिल रही है कि नहीं? उसके लिए आशा वर्कर की भी हमें सपोर्ट लेनी पड़ेगी, मेडिकल सोशल वेलफेयर डिपार्टमेंट की मदद लेनी पड़ेगी, आंगनबाड़ी वर्कर्स को, आशा वर्कर्स की हेल्प लेने के लिए हमें हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट की मदद लेनी पड़ेगी, देन लॉ डिपार्टमेंट की मदद लेनी पड़ेगी, ताकि हम एनलाइटन कर सकें माँ बाप को, सोसाइटी को, पेरेंट्स को, टीचर्स को, कि लीगल इसकी इम्प्लीकेशंस क्या हो सकती हैं। अगर बच्चा आपका इन्वॉल्व हो जाए किसी क्राइम में, तो उसके लीगल कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस क्या होंगे उसके लिए। तो ये सारी चीजें देखकर एक स्ट्रेटजी अडॉप्ट की जा सकती है। उस स्ट्रेटजी को मैंने अडॉप्ट किया डिस्ट्रिक्ट जेल जम्मू में। मैंने ये दिल्ली की जो जेल, तिहाड़ जेल, वहां पे भी विजिट किया था, फिर केरला की जेल में भी विजिट करा। हमारी जेल्स में ऐसे कोई प्रोग्राम्स नहीं है जिसमें बिहेवियर चेंजिंग प्रोग्राम्स की कोई इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो रही हो। वहां पे खाली इकोनॉमिक अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए या इकोनॉमिकली रिहेबिलिटेट करने के लिए उनके पास प्रोग्राम्स हैं, उनके पास फंडिंग है, लेकिन उनके पास ऐसे कोई प्रोग्राम्स नहीं है जिसमें उनके बिहेवियर को टैकल किया जा सके। अब क्रिमिनल जो है वो गवर्नमेंट के पास या स्टेट के पास उतने समय के लिए होगा जब तक वो जेल में होगा। अगर वो जेल से बाहर आ गया तो फिर वो स्टेट के कंट्रोल में नहीं होगा। तो वही टाइम है जब आप उसके बिहेवियर को कंट्रोल कर सकते हो। और अगर उस टाइम में भी आपने उसका कंट्रोल को करने के लिए आपने कोई स्ट्रेटजी अडॉप्ट नहीं करी, तो आपने क्या किया? इसलिए वो प्रोग्राम हमने इम्प्लीमेंट करा, वो जेल में, डिस्ट्रिक्ट जेल में जम्मू में, और उसके बड़े पॉजिटिव रिजल्ट आए। मैंने अपनी किताब में भी लिखा है, कंट्रोलिंग द माइंड ऑफ ए क्रिमिनल द योगिक वे। उसमें भी इसमें सारी कॉन्सेप्ट को कि योगा की कौन कौन से वो आसन हैं, कौन कौन से मेडिटेशन का कौन सा पार्ट है, इसमें हम ये वो वाले ब्रेन के पार्ट्स जो हैं जिसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए हम वो उसको ट्रेन कर सकते हैं। तो अगर हम ये सारा का सारा हम कर पाए तो मेरे ख्याल में जितनी भी जो ड्रग्स की प्रॉब्लम है, उस ड्रग की प्रॉब्लम से जो आने वाले समय में जो बच्चे सकेंगे या कह रहे हैं आज कि मैं इसके लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं था, क्योंकि मैं अगर जेनेटिकली मैंने ये इनहेरिट करा अपने माँ बाप से, तो उसमें मेरा क्या कसूर है। या स्कूल में जब कोरेक्टिव स्टेप्स लेने थे, स्कूल मैनेजमेंट ने या कॉलेज मैनेजमेंट में ने, तो उन्होंने अगर कोरेक्टिव स्टेप्स नहीं लिए, तो आज मेरा बिहेवियर जो बन गया है, उसके लिए मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ। तो उसके लिए अगर कोरेक्टिव स्टेप्स इसी टाइम पे लें, तो स्टेट भी ये कह सकती है कि हमने कोरेक्टिव स्टेप्स लिए थे, लेकिन देयर कैन बी सर्टेन अदर सर्कमस्टांसेस, ऐसे सर्कमस्टांसेस थे जो पूरे प्रॉपर्ली वेरीफाई नहीं हो सके, जिसमें आपकी कोऑपरेशन नहीं मिली, आपकी फैमिली की या आपके एनवायरनमेंट की या आपकी सोसाइटी की, उसकी वजह से हो सकता है ये आपका हो। लेकिन मेरा ये उम्मीद भी है, और ये एक्सपेरिमेंट करके भी हमने देखा है कि अगर हम प्रॉपर करेक्टिव स्टेप्स लें तो सर्टनली 100% ये बिहेवियर चेंज होता है। जैसे कि आप कंप्यूटर की फॉर्मेटिंग करते हैं, उस तरह से ब्रेन की फॉर्मेटिंग भी आप कर सकते हैं। ब्रेन की फॉर्मेटिंग करके आप उसमें से डिसरप्टिव प्रोग्राम्स को डिलीट कर सकते हैं, वायरस इन्फेक्टेड फाइल्स को डिलीट कर सकते हैं, उसमें पॉजिटिव प्रोग्रामिंग की जा सकती है, और उस ब्रेन को, उस माइंड को, उस डिफेक्टिव ब्रेन को, उस डिफाउंड माइंड को, माइंडसेट को चेंज किया जा सकता है। यही कहना।
Thank you, sir. One question is by Aparijita Sharma. She follows us channel regularly. Can
जी,
alcohol have similar adverse effect on the brain?
हाँ, certainly sir, certainly alcohol has been there have been number of instances where alcohol has been found to be responsible for a lot of violent behavior. Now whether alcohol goes to the placenta, that now you see that these are the things which have been experimented only on rabbits and rats, and those rabbits and rats have displayed behavior which was problematic. Now these experiments cannot be carried out on the human beings. You cannot cut open the human mind or human brain, but you can experiment it on animals, and you can see the results. This has been experimented on animals, and it has been seen that this sort of behavior has been passed on to further generations of the mice, of the rabbits, etc.
Satish Kumar and Manish C. Shah have said that it's an excellent session. Satwinder Kumar, he also follows our channel regularly and he's a highly respected person. He says the welfare state should adopt reformative policies towards the drug addicts instead of sending addicts behind the bars. It may be treated as a disease instead of an offense.
You see that there are two types of persons who are involved in drug trade. One is the supplier, one is the addict. No, for addict, we cannot treat the same person as a person who is supplying the drugs. Addict can be a victim, but we have seen most of the cases, the persons are caught with the 2 grams of heroin or 2 grams of hashish or something like that, 2, 3 grams, 4 grams. But the big sharks, big persons, suppliers, they mostly escape from the clutches of law. When we ask this question from the investigators as to why they did not take any action against the supplier, he says that I did not follow that particular path. I simply apprehended this person. He was carrying the drug. This 2 gram has been recovered from him. So challan has been presented against him. So these are the two types of persons which need to be tackled in a different manner. A drug supplier has to be tackled in a different manner. For him, this reformative theory will not come into play. And for the addict, the reformative theory is certainly recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Jamwal. You have nicely explained that there cannot be one size shoe which fits all. And
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And we are quite sure that this journey of sharing knowledge with you would continue with the channel of Beyond Law CLC. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay. Namaskar.